The Notre Dame six-pack show is back. Can you believe it's been since July 8th that we have done this show? I was on vacation. Jack was on vacation for a couple of weeks, but we are back, and we are going to be in this time slot moving forward, Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern time, for those who like to watch live on YouTube. But if you're watching back, if you're listening to this as a podcast, we really appreciate you doing that as well. Please hit the thumbs up on this video. Excuse me, today, Junior. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content. And of course, blueandgold.com is your home for all things Notre Dame Fighting Irish football recruiting. You know these two guys, Tyler Horka and Jack Soble. They need no introduction. We are going to just go ahead and dive into today's show. Just a day removed from fall camp that begins on Thursday morning. Jack and Tyler will be there and get to see it in its entirety. So really looking forward to that. But we're going to start with something that happened yesterday. Pete Bevacqua, Notre Dame athletic director, meeting with Eric Hansen and a few other members of the local media. Of course, Eric now working with Blue and Gold. So I know you two have both been able to read what Bevacqua had to say. I'll start with Jack. Biggest takeaway, react to what Bevacqua has said to the local media.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, he said pretty much nothing that he and Marcus Freeman haven't said all offseason. And I honestly think that's been one of the biggest wins of the offseason for Notre Dame. Basically, Bevacqua reiterated that, Notre Dame wants to play USC. Notre Dame believes it's great for college football, and it would be horrible if they didn't play USC. And that crucially, if the series ends, it is on USC. And that is the narrative, the correct narrative, by the way, that Notre Dame has pushed all throughout the offseason. And it's part of it in the grand scheme of things. Have you noticed how good at PR Notre Dame has gotten under Marcus Freeman and Pete Bevacqua? In January, all the headlines were oh, Notre Dame is somehow likable now. And that's a credit to Marcus Freeman. Now, when you read Pat Forty's writing about the Notre Dame USC series, the blame is squarely placed, as it should, by the way, on Lincoln Riley and USC. And that is a credit to how well Notre Dame has crafted the narrative throughout the offseason and controlled what people think about them. And it only helps Notre Dame's public perception that if the series dies, the world knows who caused it.
Yeah, it very much feels like Notre Dame has backed USC into a corner. And instead of USC just raising its hand, walking out of the corner and saying, you know what, we've been wrong. You guys are right. Let's play this game now, next year, and in the future for a long time moving forward. USC just keeps kind of cowering in that corner saying, we don't know if we want to do this. We want to do it here and we want to do it then. And, we don't want to go to South Bend at this time of year. And, they've already gotten that on their side in recent years where they have to come in October. Could you imagine if they had to come in November when Notre Dame has to go out there? Now I get it that the weather in Southern California is pretty much the same all year round, so that doesn't matter. But I saw somebody on our message board, Jack, say that it should be the Thanksgiving weekend game every single year, no matter whether it's in South Bend or it's in Los Angeles. And USC has for years now said, no, that's not happening. And so this is just a continuation of what we've kind of already known, where Notre Dame is in a unique position of being an independent and it does a lot of things differently, but I still give Notre Dame credit for being on the front lines. Pete Bevacqua, Marcus Freeman, and everyone else saying, yeah, we want to play this game. We want to play those guys. It should be that way. And quite frankly, the comment that Pete Bevacqua told Eric Hansen and some others yesterday is it would be bad for college football if this game was not played. You don't have to say that it's the best rivalry in college football because it's probably not. There's a few others that the blood is a bit nastier, I would say. But look, this is still a top 5 college football rivalry. And to see that go away would be a huge loss. I agree with Pete Bevacqua on that.
Could see you physically resisting the temptation to make it about Texas. So good job. Hey, good job on that front.
You did it this time.
No, you wanted to. No, I agree with everything you said. I've written before. I've written before that on some level, thanks, Mike. You get USC wanting to pull out of this rivalry. Their schedule is difficult in the Big Ten, and Lincoln Riley had Big Ten Media Days, which was a complete disaster for several reasons. But not just him, like a whole Big Ten media days, keep pushing the narrative of like the 4 auto bids for the Big Ten and SEC and all that awful stuff. But Lincoln Riley basically said, we only want to play this game if it doesn't actually matter. That's his position, because he's saying that we only want to play this game if the bids are determined solely by conference standings. Like, you're saying you want to play this game as an exhibition, which fine. Also, if you're USC, you did this to yourself by blowing up a regional conference, which is a whole other discussion. Like that. That's why I think like the whole travel argument is just nonsensical, because like USC, you could be playing in the Pac-12 and traveling to the Midwest once every 2 years, but instead you're not, and that is completely your fault. But no, I mean, like you said, Tyler, this rivalry should be played. Rivalries dying because of realignment is just a bad thing that is really just caused by corporate greed at this point in college football. Like, I think again it was Pat Forty. I'll reference again, who wrote that there are 2 drivers of change in college football. There's the necessary ones, which are NIL and transfer portal. That's player freedom. And there are the unnecessary ones, which is the realignment, which is driven exclusively by greed. And USC was a big part of that. Now they want to pull out of the Notre Dame rivalry, and it's a massive PR disaster for them, as it should be.
Last minute, we should talk about the other article that Eric Hansen wrote just a little bit. I thought it was very, very strong rhetoric in that article, not just from Eric, but from Pete Bevacqua as well, where it says that he sat down with Ron Powlus and Marcus Freeman, Pete Bevacqua did, and he basically asked them, hey, like, what do we need to win a national championship? And there was just like this not awkward or eerie silence, but a silence. And the silence said everything, that the answer is nothing. Like, Notre Dame needs nothing more to win a national championship. It has everything that it needs, with Marcus Freeman at the top and then all the way down through the players and support staff and whatnot. And Jack, I'd have to say that I agree with them. Like, you were knocking on the door last year, and I very much believe that Notre Dame will be knocking on the door with this current setup of national championships for years to come.
I think you'll continue to need to continue. You need to continue to have the resources to innovate, which is a big reason Notre Dame's in this position. But there's no reason to think that they won't have that moving forward.
Fall camp starts tomorrow. Jack, I'll just give you an open floor here. Let's talk about the offense. Let's hold the quarterback talk. We're going to spend a whole 6 minutes on that one. But yeah, Jack, you want to go through some of the positions?
Yeah, I guess I'll start off with what I'm going to be watching the closest on offense, which is the right guard. We'll give our predictions for this battle soon, but whoever replaces Charles Jagasaw, whether that's Sylvan Absher, Gerby Lambert, or the field, that's going to be huge, because let me introduce you guys to Ruben Bain Jr., who is Miami's really, really good. He was hurt a lot last year, but he's a projected top 10, top 15 draft pick. He's like 6'3", 275. They will move him around the offensive line. And if Miami's new defensive coordinator, Corey Heatherman, did I say offensive line? I meant defensive line. If Miami's defensive coordinator, Corey Heatherman, is smart, he is going to create one-on-one matchups for Ruben Bain against Notre Dame's least experienced offensive lineman. And there's not going to be much Notre Dame can do to prevent that, which means that Sylvan Absher or Gerby Lambert or whoever has to be ready. That is priority. Aside from the quarterback competition, that's priority number 1 for me on offense. You have to get that 5th offensive lineman ready.
Yeah, I think that's where everyone, if you're not watching the quarterbacks, you're going to look immediately to right guard and be like, okay, is that Sullivan Absher there? Gerby Lambert is an interesting name if you're able to kick him inside, because you do have this, and I guess that opens a broader conversation about the tackles specifically. You have this thing where it's been mentioned on our message board over and over and over again. I think a lot of Notre Dame fans are thinking the same way is, all right, Anthony Knapp, Emil Wagner, you're going to run that back. It very much sounds like Joe Rudolph wants those 2 guys in those 2 positions, left and right tackle respectively. Like, what does that mean for Gerby Lambert? What does that mean for Will Black? Styles Prescott is a guy that's come on strong. I think you can kind of kick him around a few different spots as well. So it's a very good problem to have, I think, if you're Joe Rudolph, where you have all of these guys and you can only play 5 of them. I think what we know for sure on the offensive line is that Ashton Craig is going to play center. Billy Schrouth is going to play left guard. And then, like I said, you have those tackles for as long as they're healthy. Those are going to be your 2 guys on the outside. So it really all comes down to that right guard spot. And if it's Sullivan Absher, who I think, Jack, you and me both agree, we'll get to that a little bit later on, is probably your best bet there, then I think like as many reps as you can get with those 5 across the board in fall camp, the better off you're going to be. Because you saw last year when Charles Jagusah went down, a bunch of stuff started moving around. It was Tosh Baker, and then it ended up being Knapp, and then all of a sudden you got Pendleton playing with the ones at guard. And Notre Dame still ended up having a really good offensive line in 2024. If you can just kind of nail down what the first month and a half of your season is going to look like early in camp and roll with that into Miami, Texas A&M, and beyond, like that sets the foundation. And I think Notre Dame would be in a really good spot if it knows, hey, this is our 5 to start, and we're going to invest a lot in these guys.
Yeah, and I think that's why, like you mentioned Joe Rudolph, moving stuff around. That's why the field has to be in the conversation when we talk about that 5th spot, because we know Joe Rudolph's not afraid to get creative. The other part of the offense that I wanted to touch on and that I'll be watching is the newcomer skill guys, like the newcomer, the ones who enrolled in the summer, specifically Malachi Fields, Ty at wide receiver, Ty Washington at tight end, James Flanagan also at tight end. Flanagan, the freshman, Washington, the Arkansas transfer, Fields, the Virginia transfer. Fields is obviously a big one. He's, as we've discussed before in the show, a massive key to this Notre Dame offense working out. He's the big-bodied boundary receiver who, when you watch him in film, he's really good. He's faster than you think he is at that size. He's really good at using what speed he has to gain leverage over the top on defensive backs. He'll go against Leonard Moore a lot in fall camp, and I'm really looking forward to that. That's the one-on-one matchup I'm looking forward to the most, and I don't think it's particularly close in fall camp when we watch practice tomorrow. And then at tight end, like, I'm really curious to see what Washington looks like, because he's someone Mike Denbrock has been really high on. Denbrock told us like he's been trying to get this guy to play for him for like 7 years now at multiple spots. So really intrigued with him. And then James Flanagan, like we all talk about freshman to watch, he's number 1 on the list for me by far, because one of those tight ends is probably going to need to contribute this year. And I'm really curious to see what they look like.
Yeah, in watching a full practice, I get it. They're not going to be in pads tomorrow, but we can at least see if it's a 2 tight end set, who the 2 tight ends are, or if it's clearly the 2s, like who is that second tight end? I think you wrote about it, Jack, in one of your articles this week. It's like it really feels like Eli Raridan and everyone else right now. So I really want to see kind of who falls in line. And I've been pushing more and more. I would not be shocked if it's Ty Washington, just given Cooper Flanagan's out with the Achilles. Jack Larson, he still very much feels like a freshman. He's a redshirt freshman at this point, but he didn't get a whole lot of reps last year. And then James Flanagan is a true freshman. So like if it's Ty Washington, I wouldn't be overly surprised. Malachi Fields, all I'm going to say on him is, yeah, I'm really excited to see just like a different body type out there for Notre Dame. I get it. Bo Collins was 6'3", but like just over 200 pounds, or in that 200, 210 range. Malachi Fields is every bit of 6'4", 220, 225. So he's just a different body type out there. And I mean, if we get some throw it up and let him catch it type of situations, even on this day one, I would be thrilled, because that's what we need to see from this Notre Dame offense.
Ding, ding, ding. All right, we'll keep it with you, Tyler. On the defensive side of the ball, what are you keeping an eye on? So let's talk about some of these positional battles.
Yeah, I think we got to start with the safeties probably. And particularly with safety, I'm curious to see what the addition of Jalen Stroman looks like. And because it was already a healthy competition with so many guys between Luke Talek, Tay Johnson, Jadon Blair, the freshman, was even getting in there. Now you throw in a Virginia Tech transfer who's played a bit of ball, more football than those guys in his career, obviously. So you get the veteran. Like, how much does that, if these guys are all tied, how much of a tiebreaker is that to say, okay, Stroman's done this before? If it's a 1A, 1B situation, which it might be with him and Talek, I think Luke Talek is like the guy that we're looking at there to maybe break out. I even wrote about that at blueandgold.com today. Not the first time that any of us has said that as well. So safety is going to be really interesting. We'll get more into like who we think is going to are going to win those battles later on. But I'm definitely going out there saying, okay, like kind of with the tight ends. When safeties are rolling with the ones, who are the 2 safeties? When it's the 2s, who are the 2 safeties? Is it a 50-50 type of thing? Like that's where when you're privy to watching a whole practice like this, Jack, I think you kind of approach it the same way, where it's like a lot of reps keep adding up, where it's like, okay, this guy didn't just get one turn with the ones. He was with the ones quite a bit, or this guy was more with the twos than he was with the ones. We're going to look at that with the safeties quite a bit. So that's where I'm first turning my attention there.
Yeah, I truly have no, like we'll give our picks later, but I really do not know who's going to win this safety battle. Like it's truly a three-way competition. We're leaning one direction, but it could easily go in either of the other two. Plus, like assuming Notre Dame rotates three safeties like it did the past couple of years, or not necessarily rotates, like uses a third safety in the sub package. Like I'm almost more curious who's going to be the odd man out of those three between Johnson, Stroman, and Talich, because I think it has to be someone, but I really don't know who of that group you wouldn't use. So I'm very curious to see how that goes. I'll be watching Boubacar Traore and Bryce Young very closely because Notre Dame needs those guys to reemerge in Traore's case and emerge in Young's case as potentially dominant pass rushers. I would like to see the same thing with kind of like Malachi Fields going up against Leonard Moore. I'm really fascinated to see what those guys look like going up one-on-one. Again, and I know they won't be in pads tomorrow, so it'll be tough, but one-on-one against Emil Wagner, against Anthony Knapp. Like I want to see those guys win some of those reps, particularly Young, who like we didn't see super advanced pass. Like we saw him win some reps, but nothing super advanced from him. So seeing those guys beat Notre Dame's established tackles, I think that's one of the things, and I wrote in our roundtable discussion a while back, seeing those two guys win battles against the Notre Dame starting tackles is one of the things that I could see in fall camp that I think would really raise my expectations of what the ceiling is.
Keeping it with the defensive line, like I want to see what Gabriel Rubio, Donovan Heinisch, Jared Dawson, Elijah Hughes, what do they look like against Billy Strouth or Ashton Craig or Sullivan Abser, who we talked about earlier, where I think, let's face it, and let's call it like it is in last year's fall camp, it got to a point where the Notre Dame coaching staff saw that Tosh Baker probably wasn't going to hold up over a 12-game season against some of these defensive linemen that Notre Dame had to go against. So they had to make a move, and they made it pretty quickly. They said, we're going to start this true freshman because we think he's going to hold up a little bit more. Like Sullivan Abser, he's a big body just like Tosh Baker was, but big body doesn't always mean you're going to stay in front of the guy who's trying to get around you. So if this is an audition for Sullivan Abser, which it really sounds like it is, then he's got to win the audition. Like he has to blow the coaches away in a sense, and that like he shows them, yeah, I'm ready for this. Because that was the whole narrative with him in the spring was, I want to do something where the coaching staff is forced to say that guy needs to be on the field. And like, this is his chance to do that. So very, very interested to see what on the other side of that, keeping up with the defense, obviously, because that's what we're supposed to be talking about here. Like what do the tackles look like against him? Like, are they able to get by him? Or is it an even match? Are those guys making a difference in the middle? Because we have to state it here. We have to remember that Notre Dame lost two NFL caliber tackles in Howard Cross and Riley Mills. And now it's up to the guys that they left behind to kind of do what they did and carry on some disruptive stuff in the middle of the defensive line.
Going back to the secondary for the final minute, something I'm fascinated to see is just the bevy of young, talented cornerbacks Notre Dame has. The Carson Hobbs, the Cree Thomases, the Mark Zacharys, Dallas Goldens, and the safeties, Jadon Blair, Ethan Long, Brandon Logan. Like Notre Dame has more defensive backs that it can realistically start and even play in the next 2-3 seasons. Like there are going to be some really talented players that don't really make headway at Notre Dame. That's gonna be a complete bloodbath of a competition going forward. Who emerges early from that group, especially at corner? Like Carson Hobbs is a freak athlete with a ton of confidence. Dallas Golden's a freak athlete. Mark Zachary got the Inspector Gadget arms, and he's got the basketball skill set. Cree Thomas was getting compared to Benjamin Morrison in spring practice. Like that's an extremely talented group, not all of whom are going to play at Notre Dame. And this is a start of not the start, it's a continuation of a really exciting time at cornerback for the hour.
I don't think we need to talk about the quarterback battle. We can probably just skip this one. Jack.
But the thumbnail, Mike.
But the thumbnail, that's true. I've been saying for a little while now, especially in talking to sources recently. I got CJ winning, but I would not be surprised. Maybe I would be a little surprised, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if Kenny is the guy. I think this is a real battle. I really do, Jack. What do you think?
Would I be surprised if Minchie won? Yes, but I completely agree. It's a real battle. I think everyone on the beat is expecting Carr to win. National media is assuming Carr is like they're writing about it like Carr's already won. But I completely agree with Mike that like this is a legitimate quarterback competition. I think you still have to keep in mind that like Mike Denbrock has always had success with dual threat quarterbacks, from Desmond Ridder to Jaden Daniels to Riley Leonard. Like that's been the archetype he prefers. If they're even as passers, which we don't think they are at this point, but if they are in fall camp, like that could put Kenny Minchie over the top. Do I think Carr's going to win? Yes, but I mean that's obviously what we're going to be watching closest on day one is, does either quarterback really separate themselves?
I would be surprised, yes, if Kenny Minchie won, but it is kind of intriguing to see if, like let's put it this way: Mike Denbrock is going to, and Marcus Freeman, Gino Guidugli, everyone involved in this, going to make the best decision for Notre Dame football. If they go against the grain a little bit, because like you said, Jack, everyone's national media. You're picking CJ Carr. I'm picking CJ Carr. Mike's picking CJ Carr. Like, who isn't picking CJ Carr? There's some fans out there. We've heard them. But that would still be an against the grain type of decision. And I go back to 2022 when Marcus Freeman did not make the against the grain decision, and Tommy Rees and everyone involved there. It was Tyler Buchner, Drew Pine. It very much felt like Buchner was going to win. And sure enough, just a couple weeks into camp, that's the news that we got, was that Tyler Buchner won that competition. Looking back, I mean, you could probably find tweets of mine that said, like, I think Drew Pine actually won this practice day and then that practice day. And like, look, we don't know what Tyler Buchner would have been had he played that entire season, only played 3 games. And one of the hardest ones of, opening at Ohio State was tough. And he played he kept Notre Dame in that game. But like, I'm not convinced that he would have done like a whole lot better than Drew Pine in that season. So I'm curious to see, with Marcus Freeman having 3 years of experience now and some coaches that he trusts and leans on and whatnot, is Notre Dame willing to say, you know what, we have a feeling about Kenny Minchie. Like, he's been here a year longer. He can do those things with his legs, Jack, that you talked about that maybe CJ Carr can't. And if they are on the same plane as passers, why don't you go with that guy? Mike Denbrock has had really good success with rushing quarterbacks. You laid all that out. We saw it just last year. We saw it at Cincinnati, LSU, all these different places. That's what I'm curious. Like, if Jack, when we go to practices and we're like, these guys kind of look the same throwing the ball, and Kenny Minchie can do those other things, then does Notre Dame actually have the balls and the guts or the whatever to say, yep, that's the guy? We still have CJ Carr on our roster, and he still might be the guy at some point, but we're going to give Kenny Minchie the reins to this offense right now. I'll be surprised, but I'd give kudos to the staff for saying, you know what, go with your gut, see what you got with that guy.
Oh, I think they're 100% going to do that. I think there's no other option than to just pick the player who has the best camp. That's really it. Like, Freeman talked a ton about putting these guys in situations that simulate game action. And I'm sure they've done it they did a little bit in the spring, but it's really going to ramp up in fall. And that's why, like, anyone who says like, oh, I know CJ's going to win, like, they haven't done that yet. They need to put those guys in those situations, because what if Kenny Minchie handles pressure better? We don't have any evidence to think either quarterback would handle pressure better than the other, but like, if CJ Carr, or if Kenny Minchie handles those situations better, like, you gotta start him. And same thing with CJ Carr. Did you have something, Tyler?
Yeah, I think just kind of building off of that, I don't think enough of us have talked about the possibility of a redshirt freshman in CJ Carr, and Mark with Glasses is kind of talking about this, losing the job. Like, it's not that it's his to lose. I kind of agree with that, Mark, but like, it is very possible that he goes out there and the pressure gets to his head and he starts making some mistakes and he doesn't look comfortable. Like, comfortability is a huge factor in this. If Kenny Minchie is more comfortable back there and making less mistakes and improvising better than CJ Carr, then like, CJ Carr can lose this. Can he go out there and blow everybody away and win this in a landslide? Absolutely. I think he's that type of talent. But I also think Kenny Minchie is talented enough to do what he needs to do to take care of his business and surprise people and maybe win this thing, even though I'm picking CJ Carr to be the guy that does that.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm picking CJ Carr too. I think on day one, what we really need to be watching out for is like if all of a sudden Marcus Freeman just calls everyone up and is like, all right, 2 minutes, and you might maybe hear some crowd noise playing. I don't know if they'll do that on day one. I don't know if they'll do that with media in attendance, or maybe that's a way to create pressure for the quarterbacks, knowing that whatever they do is going to be. I don't know if they care about that, but it's a way to create pressure. But like if we hear like, oh, hey, red zone, and everyone's like getting hyped up, that is the situation we need to watch out most for, because I truly believe that's where this quarterback competition is going to be decided.
All right, let's get to some rapid fire picks. I mean, we've talked about several of the position battles here, but I'll let Jack list each position battle. I'll let you guys make your call who you got, and cop outs are welcome. Like in my show last night with Tim, I said for tight ends, I think it's by committee for tight end too. So you guys are welcome to do that. I'll give you the floor, Jack.
All right, let's do like 45 seconds for each of the starting lineup ones, and then we can talk about some of the depth ones. Like number 2 tight ends is a depth one. So field safety: Jalen Stroman, Luke Talich, Tay Johnson. Tyler, who do you got?
I got Luke Talich. I've been on. I just think he's rapidly rising, and we're going to see the best of him this year.
Slight edge to Talich, in my opinion, with Stroman as the dime safety, basically the Rod Hurd role last year. But again, this is truly anyone's guess. I could totally see Tay Johnson just blowing everyone away in fall camp, and kind of like Schuler did last year. Like, all right, he's the guy. I think he's going to do that at some point. Like, he's on a fast track to the starting lineup at Notre Dame. Defensive end, opposite Boubacar Traore. There's no more Viper and field end. We don't know who is gonna, or we don't know who's left and right. So defensive end, opposite Boubacar Traore. We got Joshua Burnham in one corner, Bryce Young in the other corner.
I'm giving away one of my bold predictions here, but I think that Bryce Young is going to emerge in this fall camp and kind of do some of the special stuff, Jack, that you were talking about that maybe he didn't do last year. Like, he did enough to play in all 16 games, was a special teams beast, just all of the right things. I think he looks more like his lineage, like his dad did in getting to opposing quarterbacks at this point. And like, he has the breakout year. I'll talk a little bit more about him in breakout predictions, but I think he's the guy. I think he's the guy at field end, or left or right end, whatever you want to say.
I think I say Burnham starts week 1, but Young makes his way into the lineup by November. I think in all the talk about Young and Traore and Patel's injury, Josh Burnham had a damn good season for Notre Dame last year, and I think Notre Dame doesn't forget that. And like, I don't think I think he's closer. He's obviously closer to his ceiling than Young, but I don't think he's hit his ceiling yet. But I think
the one thing I'll say on that is like Junior Tui Halamaka had a hell of a year too, but Boubacar Traore is coming back, and you're like, it's that guy. I think all of a sudden Bryce Young, you look at him and you're like, okay, it's that guy. That's just my pick. For sure.
Nose tackle. I'm assuming that Gabriel Rubio is one of the defensive tackle starters, and he starts at 3 technique. We got Jared Dawson, Jason Anye, and Donovan Heinisch for the other one.
It's tough for me to like not think that Notre Dame went out and got Jared Dawson just for him to play like minimal snaps. So we've seen that before at some defensive line positions with Notre Dame, like just adding to the depth. So I want to say him, but like this Jason Anye story is too good for me to not like. I think he's a really good player, and I think he has a really good story. So my rapid fire pick is Jason Anye.
I'm not totally sold on. I need to see, like, we've seen flashes from him in offseason hype in the past. Need to see more consistency out of him. Obviously, if he's put on the weight, maybe he takes a step. I think Dawson starts because he's the best run defender, and Heinisch plays the most on passing downs. Field receiver, we got Jordan Faison and Will Pauling. This is another one where the loser of this competition will still play a ton, if not equal reps, but someone's got to start.
I think Jordan Faison starts just because he's been in this for a couple of years now with Notre Dame, and it's crazy to look at Will Pauling's career. Like, he led Wisconsin in receptions 2 years running, and you're going to bring that guy off the sideline. Really, really good spot for Notre Dame to be in there. But just like a completely healthy Jordan Faison, I think, is a game breaker, and you got to put him on the field to start games.
I think Pauling plays a ton in the slot into the field as a super sub, but I think you're right. I think Mike Denbrock is really, really high on what a healthy Faison can do. Guard opposite Billy Schrouth. I hesitate to say right guard because let's say Absher's a better fit on the left. Schrouth can play both ways, so they have some flexibility there. But guard opposite Billy Schrouth. Contenders are Sullivan, Absher, Gerby Lambert, and the field. Tyler.
I am the most, like, when it comes to Joe Rudolph, I am the guy that says the most, just don't hold your breath, actually, because you're going to run out of it and just wait to see what happens. But like Sullivan Absher, the spring that he had, the mentality that he has, I think he's the guy. Like, I think that if those are your two guards, Billy Schrouth and Sullivan Absher, you're in a really good spot. So I got Absher.
I have Absher as well. I think, and like Mike wrote earlier today, Lambert, first one off the bench at any position but center. But I think Absher's earned the spot there. Will linebacker, Jalen Sneed, Jaden Osbury, Kingston Villiamos. I do not consider Rover a starter at this point.
Jalen Sneed to start the year, kind of like your Joshua Burnham, Bryce Young thing, where it's like seniority kind of rules the day, but if talent wins over eventually, then it'll go that way. But to start, I have Jalen Sneed because he looks as good as he ever has too.
He does. I have your young position on this one. I don't think Villiamos comes off the bench in a game for Notre Dame again. Very rapid fire. No explanation, just names. Number 2 tight end.
I got Ty Washington right now.
I will also say Ty Washington. End of the wide receiver rotation. 2 spots, 5 players.
I think it's got to be KK Smith, and I've been banging the Elijah Burris drum. I think he comes on strong.
I'll say KK Smith, and Micah Gilbert has a great fall camp. Number 3 cornerback.
It's kind of looking like Cree Thomas to me, honestly. I think he's a dude.
Would also say Cree Thomas. Number 4 running back.
I'm going Kedron Young ahead of Jabron Payne there.
I'll say Young as well. Swing tackle.
I think Lambert.
I'll say Lambert, but I think Will Black by the end of the year. Maybe Lambert.
I think we think the same there. Those two guys are really good.
If Devonta Smith wins the nickel job, I think Hobbs would probably be the number 3 corner.
Right.
Yeah. Cree Thomas has been balling at both corner and safety, so he's like a next man in at a few spots. Like, I think that's a great thing about Mike Mickens being the corner and safeties coach. It's easier to kind of have those guys cross train.
Yeah, because Notre Dame needs more safeties.
Generally speaking, bold predictions, Jack, for fall camp. What do you got?
Man, bold predictions. I think we come away from it's purely a hunch, but I think we come away from Thursday with a good idea of who the starting quarterback is going to be.
I like that, and I hope it goes that way. Like, I hope we see enough to where we can definitively say that. I don't think we will. I think it's going to go for 2 weeks, and then they're going to make the call or whatever. But I would, yeah. And I don't know if I would love to see that, actually, because, like, so are you saying that CJ Carr is going to look that much better than Kenny Minchie? That's what you're
I'm not even saying either of them. I don't think they're obviously not going to name a starter after day 1 of camp, but I think either one of them for the sake of discussion, sure CJ Carr, but I think we look at the quarterback play and think that guy's not going to give this up.
I would love to see that. That'd be fun to watch. One of my bold predictions kind of goes off of what we were talking about at the end of last segment. And I wish I could be a little bit more bolder and give a name, but one of these freshman defensive backs, Zachary, Thomas, Golden, it's just going to happen for them like it happened for Benjamin Morrison and like it happened for Leonard Moore. And that might mean an injury has to occur for it to go that way. But, like, I think we will be talking about one of those guys at the end of this season, the same way that we talked about Benjamin Morrison at the end of his freshman season, same way we talked about Leonard Moore at the end of his freshman season. Like, it's just been happening too often. And Christian Gray, for that matter, like, he's getting kind of lost in this shuffle. I think he's in that same tier of, holy cow, it just happened for him really fast. Who that's going to be, I'm not sure. Maybe I'll say Cree Thomas. Like, I just think that there's special players back there that Mike Mickens and Marcus Freeman have recruited, and, like, we're going to see that again this season.
The biggest difference, I know Moore had a better freshman year, but the biggest difference between him and Gray as freshman was that the corners ahead of Moore got hurt and left. The corners ahead of Gray stayed healthy. I mean, he was very much a starting caliber player then. Other bold predictions, I have to think. You have any off the top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to I'm just gonna bang the Bryce Young drum right now, early and often. He's gonna lead this team in sacks. I think he's gonna start against Miami. He's gonna start for however many games he remains healthy. 95 is my favorite number, and he switched to it. So like I feel like I gotta ride with this guy and run with this guy, but it's way more than that, obviously. It's like you look at him and you're like, at some point he's gonna it's kind of like Isaiah Foskey, and guess what, that guy turned out to be Notre Dame's all-time leader in sacks, where as a freshman you saw some things, you're like, okay, this dude looks a little bit different, he probably moves different, and eventually like it just comes to him, and he gets everything that you think that he's going to get. I think Bryce Young is going to be that player this year, next year, and who knows, maybe he's gone after that, because like he's that type of special football player.
If we're doing statistical predictions, I think KVA leads this team in tackles for loss. He's such a Swiss Army knife in that he can destroy blocks in the run game. He can rush off his ability to bend the edge and like duck around offensive tackles is insane for an off-ball linebacker. And then he can carry guys up the seam in coverage. Like we saw him carry Greathouse up the seam in coverage last spring. Like I think he does not come off the bench in a game for Notre Dame again, and I think he plays a ton and plays really well this year.
Mike, are you popping in to say something?
Mark says Singer needs to do a bold prediction. Give me something about Elijah Burris. I don't know what that means. I don't know exactly what it is, but I've got him as receiver 5 for Notre Dame. You got the 4, you got the 2 transfers, Greathouse and Faison. I'll take Burris as receiver 5, and then James Flanagan. I think he's tight end 2 by the end of the season.
I still think KK is the wide receiver 5 because you need that deep threat. And I think he brings something that the top 4 doesn't, and I don't know if I can say that about any of the other options.
Here's a bold prediction, and I think we were supposed to go more fall camp with this, but like what happens in camp?
Oh, it's true. Yeah.
It translates to the season, right?
True.
Will Pauling ends up being this team's number 2 receiver behind Malachi Fields because of his versatility of being able to play slot and field. I think he's going to get like an extra amount of looks, even if he doesn't start a game. Like I said it at Wisconsin, leading receiver, you can't make those numbers up. And I think he's a special dude, and he's not Notre Dame's number 2 wide receiver. And whatever metric you want to look at, receptions, yards, like I don't know. He's going to be right up there with Malachi Fields or right behind him.
I disagree with that, but I do think that between him and Greathouse, Notre Dame has 2 really good options on third downs. And I think that's just between them and Raridan, who's a perfect tight end for a young quarterback. Like they have set up the young quarterback well to succeed.
Any like negative bold predictions? Like anyone that you think?
I know at the beginning of this, when I saw Mark with glasses over there saying we need it to be real bold, I'm like, all right, Notre Dame 9-3, but I just
my negative bold that isn't actually very bold because it happens all the time with a new coordinator taking a successful defense is that Notre Dame fans will be annoyed to unhappy with Chris Ash for reasons that aren't actually his fault. It's just that it's inevitable to regress with a new coordinator in a successful defense.
Hey, we're still under the 40-minute mark here, so I think I could say this as well. I put that on Hey Horka, Jack. I really like that shout because somebody asked me, okay, like aside from the quarterback situation, what does Marcus Freeman need to like fear the most or be wary of the most or conscious of, whatever you want to use there? And I said making sure his rapport with Chris Ash and like the way that they're rolling out that defense is on the same page. Like the working and personal relationship that Marcus Freeman had with Al Golden, I don't think can be overstated enough. Like those 2 guys were in this thing together for 3 years, and now you have a new defensive coordinator. You better be on the same page, because if things look a little wacky, fans are going to notice and they're going to say, hey, that's not the way this was the last couple of seasons. What the heck is going on here? So Freeman and Ash need to like be cohesive from the start.
I'm saying like it's possible that like Ash does absolutely nothing wrong and the defense still reverses a little bit, because like remember all the chatter last offseason was like Al Golden's in year 3. Notre Dame, the defense knows all the basics, all the players have the system down. then now he can get freaky on passing downs with some of those blitz packages. Like, even though Ash has said all the right things about what?
Nothing.
Just your use of the word freaky there. We liked it.
I liked it. It's good.
Yeah,
Chris Ash is getting freaky.
No, it's a good point though. You're onto something with the Chris Ash thing.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like you no matter how much you try to maintain continuity, you don't have that right now.
Yeah. All right. Great show. We will be live next Friday for the recruiting show, and we will have content tomorrow. I'm sure these two jokers will be recording a post-practice video where they will be talking about everything they saw, but that video will be like 10 minutes, and
15.
There's 15 but I won't be happy about it, but 10 minutes. I'm the one who edits it.
It'll be sent in at 15 and edited down to 10.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, these two will have a lot more on our blueandgold.com website, and then Tyler James and Eric Hansen will be there as well, writing a ton. So make sure you lock in not only to this YouTube channel and podcast channel, but our website, blueandgold.com, for so much more. We actually have a pretty neat offer as well for folks. Maybe you're like going to take the plunge finally to get to Blue and Gold. How about this? Join Blue and Gold now for $1 for your first week and enjoy a complimentary year of The Athletic included with your membership. I tweeted that out over at Blue and Gold's Twitter page, so you can find the link there. But yeah, that is going to do it for the show. Hit the thumbs up on this video, subscribe to the channel for more content, and as always, we will catch you next time.